there that he's being politically persecuted uh, might not hold water before the uh, Dutch authorities, because it's very clear that he was he was the legal counsel of this company. So it's very
Lucky,
difficult
lucky
for him to
Lantern
say
again.
that it's a politically motivated. So I don't know how it will be resolved, but uh, it's an uphill battle for him, I think.
Yeah, well, uphill battle. He might need that. But kanina actually umikot ako dito sa Baguio, Justice Carpio. I was thinking, ano, parang may mga magagandang bagong bahay na nakikita ko dito. Ito kaya yung bahay ni ano, 'di ba? Kami na mami ko nagchichis. Parang, "Uy, ang ganda ng bahay na 'to." Baka ito yung bahay ni Mr. Tulips na ang tawag namin sa kanya. Justice, let's go to the latter part and last part of our discussion. So, obviously this is public knowledge, right? So you were in the US UPenn, right? I mean,
Yeah.
can you tell minsan kasi mahirap yung mga guests ko, biglang ayaw para nila na sabihin ko saan sila or something eh. Hindi ka naman Harry Roque, Justice Carpio, so wala ka naman maling ginawa. So anong ginawa mo sa US, Justice Carpio, just for the sake of our audience?
Well, I had a 2 week fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania Perry World House, because they had a conference on the South China Sea dispute, and this was a conference among people who focus their research on the South China Sea. So that was, and I gave lectures to different classes, law class, international relations students. Uh, so that was it for about almost 2 weeks.
Obviously, you were there in the US in the middle of some even call it a cultural revolution, right? So we can talk about the immigration issue now, but my goodness, like Columbia University caved in, and still there, it's unlikely they'll get the funds. There was a fear that after an elite school like Columbia University basically caving in even preemptively, right, that there will be a kind of a domino effect. But Harvard University has stood its ground, and it looks like Harvard University is even willing to risk losing its tax exemptions, right? Status. So hindi lang losing billions in terms of science, laboratory related investments from the federal budget, but Harvard is going. What is your read of this academic freedom debate that is going on in the US? Because the conservative argument would be masyado daw naging woke itong mga Ivy League schools and all, and that if taxpayers' monies in billions is going to these Ivy League schools or whatever university, they have a responsibility to reflect the mandate or preferences of an elected government for that matter, right? What is your read on that, Justice, on the
Well,
situation?
when I was there, even University of Pennsylvania was lost 200 million US dollars for their medical research, but something came up. The Trump administration admitted that the letter that they sent to Harvard was a mistake. I mean,
They do
they
that.
said
They,
that
they do
it
that
shouldn't have been
sometimes. Yeah.
sent
Yeah. Wala daw
because I think,
authorization yung letter daw, hindi daw na ano, oo. Parang
yeah,
incomplete
so I
daw.
think they realize that they're going to lose because this is academic freedom. I mean, the purpose of a university is to search for the truth. And you cannot you cannot say that you have to follow these policies. I mean, Trump wanted to be the president of Harvard University in effect. So I think they knew that they realized that they made a bluff. They were able to intimidate Columbia University, and UPenn, University of Pennsylvania, was quiet about it. But when they went after Harvard, Harvard knew that this was that the Trump administration will not win on these issues before the Supreme Court, because what is at issue here is academic freedom. So I think so that's why they backed down. They said, "Oh, that letter that we sent shouldn't have been sent.
Kasi walang
That was not
signature or
authorized." So
authorization.
they walked back everything, and so I think but they have not withdrawn it. I mean their attack.
Threat. Yeah.
But when they said that it should not have been sent, I mean that their entire argument collapsed already.
I mean, to be fair, other schools, and I don't want to play this East Coast, West Coast, whatever, Midwest kind of, enough of regionalism and all, baka mampahamak na naman tayo. But in fairness, just to be clear, also Princeton University president gave a very strong interview, I think, to New York Times the other week, saying there's no way they're gonna. So a couple of East Coast schools, Ivy League schools, also made it clear. So just to be clear, hindi lang Harvard ang nag-hardline na there's no way we're gonna cave in.
Yeah.
Just to give credit also to the other schools, because I don't think Harvard made that decision in isolation. I think they were confident that Princeton, Yale, and other elite schools in East Coast would also hold their ground. So they felt they were not alone in this. Yun nga, kaya biglang Colombia standouts in the wrong way. But there's the other side to this justice, right? Kaya sabi ko, this has a very Duterte feel. Like yung mga first 100 days in Duterte, parang idea na he could get away with anything, right? Including, do you, again, justice, your justice in the Philippines, but obviously the Philippine justice system has a lot, in terms of overlap or in terms of heritage from the US jurisprudence. I keep on hearing our legal friends in the Philippines even citing the jurisprudence in the US Supreme Court. What is your read on the immigration issue? I mean, if you look at the case of Kilmar, there are a couple of other cases that less known, but I've been also looking at. I mean, they're just dumping people into El Salvador, and then the El Salvador president saying, "Oh, I'm not gonna bring back terrorists." Then Trump is saying, "Oh no, I'm not gonna take terrorists. I'm not gonna tell El Salvador what to do." And then and then retrospectively yung iba, kahit mali daw yung pagkuha sa kanila, biglang, hindi, pero member to ng gang, right? There's another case, this young kid, I think 18-year-old, si Teran, right? Who, like, from Venezuela siya, he came legally through the process during Biden and all, but he had a kind of a criminal conviction in Chile, and then yun ang ginamit laban sa kanya to say he belongs to some dangerous Venezuelan gang. Parang naalala ko yung panon ni Digong na pag may nangyaring tokang, tapos alam nila mali yun, retrospect, hindi, siguro drug addict yun, or sinabi nga ni Bato, di ba, things happen, right? I know it's not the same because we're not talking about extrajudicial killings, but in terms of like pushing the boundaries of executive power, in terms of undermining checks and balances, because your power as a Supreme Court justice in the Philippines was a reflection of that American style separation of powers and checks and balances. What is your read of that? That Supreme Court is now even demanding the government to correct some of these mistakes, and it looks like the government is not as receptive as it should be.
Well, the issue of due process is very strong. I mean, you can deport them, but you have to go through a process. That's for in our system as well as in the U.S. That's a bedrock principle. So, and I think the U.S. Supreme Court will stand its ground here. That okay, if you have anything against this guy, bring it out and we will support you. But you just cannot say, we made a mistake. I mean, that is against due process now. So you have to correct yourself if if you made a mistake.
Do
So I think the Trump administration cannot win on that issue on due process because uh, if you allow any administration to bypass due process, then that's the end of democracy.
Speaking of the end of democracy, do you think that the U.S. justices should ask advice from Filipino justices on when you were dealing with Duterte, who was openly defying, including co-warrantoing your former colleague, former associate as Supreme Court Justice Sereno?
Well, I don't think they read our decisions. But
That would be interesting, right? Like, 'cause this
but
is
the U.S. Supreme Court has been berated for for that decision, saying that the president has almost unlimited
immunity, yeah,
immunity.
immunity issue, yeah.
I think that was an overreach, and that emboldened Trump to do all of these things. And so they're trying to walk back now.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the argument is also is that because this involves El Salvador, a detention center there, this is a foreign policy issue. Therefore, other branches of the state basically owe deference to the president. That's the line I've been hearing from a couple
Yeah,
of top level officials.
yeah. In the area of foreign policy, the president has a wide discretion, but since they said they made a mistake, that's their problem. I mean, they cannot say that. Oh, sorry, we made a mistake. It cannot be remedied anymore. They have to do something to remedy it because they admit it was a mistake. That's the problem there. You are given a wide discretion if there's nothing wrong with what you did.
Last point, Justice, again, during our previous UTAC forum discussion and also here on our deep dive podcast, you were quite critical of the Trump administration's reliability when it comes to its alliance commitment, even in Asia, right? Because I think some of our friends, including the government, were saying, yeah, siguro kung nasa Europe ka or Ukraine ka, unfortunately, yes, but if you're, frontline Asian ally, maybe not. What is your read of the fact that as we speak, I think Marco Rubio is planning to head to the Philippines. Pete Hegseth was here the other month, and he cleared even new, the weapon systems to be deployed for the Balikatan. Even a second Typhoon system could come in. A $5 billion F-16 fighter finally cleared, at least at the technical level, although yung pera will be the issue again, as always. Um, don't you think maybe, Justice, we're a bit unfair in terms of US Philippines at least? Kasi parang sympathetic sila sa atin. Again, I don't wanna, you know, ako kasi I believe in engagement. I mean, the good Pope Francis made J.D. Vance for a few minutes yesterday, right? And in fairness to J.D. Vance, even though he has a much more conservative understanding of Catholicism, he was very deferential to the Pope in his message of kanina in sending his condolences. I- isn't it, Justice? Maybe we're being a little bit too skeptical, or maybe things are good now, but they could change radically. What is your read based on the facts on the ground so far?
Well, as I said, uh, everyone below Trump, uh, I mean, more or less, we know their position. Uh, but the problem is Trump himself, very unpredictable, and I think everybody agrees with that. But there's something that worries me because uh, in the South China Sea, as in Ukraine, the reason why Russia is annexing Ukraine, part of Ukraine, and why China is claiming the almost the entire South China Sea is because of national security. I mean, that is the reason. And Trump is using the same argument to claim Greenland national security. So that's the big problem because the that puts the U.S. in the same camp as Russia and China. And uh, how can we now take China to task for using that argument when our ally is using it also? That because of national security, we can take territory, and Trump is not taking off the table the use of force.
So you're talking about permission structure, basically. That US is normalizing this kind of imperial
Yes,
expansion. It's
because the U.S. is actually helping uh, Russia and China convince the world that national security is a is a valid reason for annexing territory. I mean, that's not what the UN Charter says. You cannot you cannot use force or threat of force. You have to go to arbitration. Uh, but if Trump will support that basic argument of Russia that because of national security we can take the territory of another country, then we're back to the
19th
might
century.
is right era,
Yeah, I mean,
and all these nuclear armed states will just trample on the smaller states, no? But and and in that case, so what will happen there is countries like South Korea and Japan, maybe Taiwan, will go nuclear because that's the only way they can protect themselves.
So basically, it's the erosion of the rules-based order or
Yes,
attempts at the rules-based order. Um, I'm so it's hard to argue how Trump is a rules-based order kind of guy, except there's this interesting argument, Justice, right? As we speak, Trump is normalizing ties with Russia. He's so far the talks with Iran are also going well. So one argument is that what if the US really here is just isolating China from its other call them axis powers, revisionist powers. Because if you look at it, for instance, on tariffs, right? It's only China which is so far being beaten down big time. I mean, like as we speak, it's like 124% tariff rates. There's an all-out trade war. There's no trade war with Russia and not with Iran, although there's sanction, obviously. But what I'm saying is, what if like both things could be true at the same time? Now, Trump is undermining the rules-based order, except when it comes to Indo-Pacific, because China is really the real threat to the U.S. global hegemony in ways that other powers are not, and therefore. US will be more realistically helpful. Do you get what I mean? The term for that is actually reverse Nixon, right? Like Nixon got China to side with him against Soviet Union tactically. Maybe he could get Russia and other revisionist powers on the normalization path and then isolate China. Isn't that is that too visual thinking for you? Because as we speak, grabbing trade war nila with China. I don't know how this is gonna. Or you're saying maybe tomorrow morning Trump wakes up and says, "Okay, I love China, great people," and then he's gonna just end the tariffs. Ganun ba yun? I mean, what is your read?
well, Trump has not withdrawn the tariff against Canada and Mexico. It's still there. So it's not as if Trump has targeted only China. It's still there, and the reaction of Canada has been very strong. So uh, and even the American companies are leaving the U.S. I mean, the John Deere, you have GM, Stellantis. They're shutting down their factories in the U.S.
Because
and
yung supply line
setting up.
sila is Canada and the rest, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're putting up factories in India, Brazil, and Mexico. So that is how the Americans themselves see Trump. That he's just too unpredictable. That they cannot plan. If they cannot plan what to do in the U.S., so they do it outside the U.S.
Yeah, so in a sense, it could actually even backfire, even if intention ni Trump could be right. Because my reading of
Yeah,
Lighthizer, yeah.
it's backfiring on Trump now. As far as U.S. companies are concerned, they have to transfer their. The purpose of Trump is he always says that I want to bring back manufacturing to to the U.S. What the reverse is happening. The opposite is happening. The U.S. companies are saying we cannot operate here with this kind of unpredictable policy, so they're moving out.
And speaking of moving out, do you think this is an opportunity for the Philippines to work more with Europe, with Canada, with all of these countries na hindi superpower but ayaw nila madikta ng any of the superpowers and they have money. I mean, they're
Yeah,
big companies,
it should
Japan,
work,
Canada,
but
Europe, yeah.
we should. Yes, this is an opportunity for countries like the Philippines, but our problem is uh, they will not come here because of our high costs of energy. I mean, because these are manufacturing activities requiring power. Basically, they need uh, cheap power, and we have one of the highest power rates in Asia. So we
Unless we
cannot really take
subsidize it.
advantage of until we resolve the power issue.
I had incidentally the Department of Energy, the secretary. I think you were colleagues at some point in UP Law. On another show I have, and his argument is that they're still trying to squeeze something out of Malampaya. There's still some adjacent efforts and all, and that there's going to be some difficult transition, but they're working on that. Ang argument ko naman, there's always industrial policy, right? Can't we subsidize electricity in certain special economic zones, right? Everyone is doing industrial policy. The Chinese are cheating like crazy, right? That's why their cars are so cheap, the EV cars, right? Because they're subsidizing the engineers, they're subsidizing everything that goes into those EVs, including even recruiting the head of a former Audi Chinese executive who they brought into over. So, para my point is, naturally, the Philippine government should have some sort of industrial policy. I mean, you took economics, Justice, right? I mean, you're an undergraduate. I'm surprised
Yeah,
that Filipinos are not talking about industrial policy. This is
yeah,
everywhere in Germany, in Japan, US. I don't know why no one talks about it here.
yeah. Vietnam and China are subsidizing their power rates for their export manufacturing companies, and that's why we cannot compete because our economists follow the traditional way that there should be no subsidies. Uh, but if you don't do that, then you miss out. You miss out. The locators won't go to you. They will go to the country that offers subsidies, and it's like you must have if you're into sales, you're selling a product, you must have some loss leaders. I mean, sell something that will attract them, sell it cheap.
May promo
They
ka, may mga promo, di ba? May mga
Yes, yes, but
take one,
but
take this one.
our economists uh, are too bookish to do that.
And oligarchs who control the power sector and all. That's my problem, Justice. Kaya nga sabi ko I really kasi tama naman yung DOE secretary natin. People can watch that separately once the video is out na actually if you remove the subsidy, ang taas din ng rates sa Vietnam, Malaysia, other
Yeah.
countries. The only reason sobrang mahal tayo is that tayo lang hindi subsidized. So parang ang point ko is, why are we playing by the book when no one is playing by the book? Not China, not Vietnam. Even the Europeans, the Germans are, they have their own industrial policy. I just always found that confounding. I know, Justice, you're a legal mind, but I don't know, when you were taking economics, wasn't industrial policy, it just always surprised me. Like, this is like common sense. You really have to subsidize power for manufacturing. Otherwise, good luck talaga sa atin. And market in the Philippines means oligarchs basically because there's no free market here. It's a few companies, a few families controlling the power sector. So I know that you would have wanted to discuss Malampaya plant and all, but I think I'm just realistically looking at it and saying like that will take some time, right? Even if you start drilling today in Reed Bank, we won't see the result for years to come. So in the meantime, alangan naman will just be status quo. So kaya my position is industrial policy, go for subsidies. And I'm in Baguio, we have Texas Instrument here. We have been doing semiconductors here in Northern Luzon. I'm saying bring in the Taiwanese. Maybe they want to invest also here, some of their semiconductors and also. What I'm saying, just in this moment of disruption and craziness, maybe there could be some opportunity if you use your mind and if you push the envelope a little bit. And feeling ko masyadong our technocrats are a little bit too playing safe, which really disappoints me. At least yung mga abogado and politiko natin makulit, no?
Yeah, we have to compete with our neighbors. Otherwise, we lose out on the investments. If we don't compete with them, talo tayo. And we're not competing with them. We're too bookish.
And too complacent. Much of our trade with US is more BPO, etc., which is great, no problem. But AI can easily take that over time. But manufacturing is really something we really, really need. On that note, thank you so much, Justice Carpio. We hope to have you in person, God willing, next week. Obviously, I think all of us were still shocked with the latest developments and all of that, and nagsisinkin pa rin. But thank you so much, Justice, for making time for us. We really, really appreciate always you sharing your points of view, the authority and the passion you bring to our discussion. Really, really is an inspiration for us. So, Justice, please also take care of yourself. Stay strong, stay healthy. Maybe huwag kang travel rin masyado, Justice. Nakakapagod yata yan. And we want to have more of you with us for our podcast and all in person with Secretary Ronald and the rest of the gang and friends. And malapit ng elections, Justice. So we really need people like you to continue to educate our people. Parati ko sinasabi, hindi po yung problema yung bobotante. Ang problema natin, even yung middle class natin, mukhang kailangan ng proper political education. Did you know, Justice, I had access to data. Candidates like Kiko Pangilinan, their highest share of vote is among E and D na walang property. Their lowest share of vote is ABC. So actually, what
Wow.
people don't know is, don't emphasize is yung ABC, which is really C, di ba? Kasi yung A and B naman
Mm.
nasa gated communities. hindi sila they are more like Duterte or even Marcos, di ba? Hindi sila progressive. So our middle class, unfortunately, is not as progressive as people think. And as a share, actually, they're even more, in the wrong side, I would say sometimes. So I know this is a sensitive issue, but this is also at the heart of the new book by one of my mentors, Dr. Walden Belli, who just released his new book, Memoirs, Global Battlefields, when he discusses his experience in Chile, whereby the middle class turned against the Allende government and supported Pinochet. Maybe, Justice, I'm kind of pushing you to write also your memoir. Are you working on a memoir, Justice?
Well, not yet. I have to finish the territorial dispute. I hope to
Of
finish
course.
my book because I've written on the maritime dispute.
Of course. Hindi ko sinasabi na you're senior or something. Justice, our prayers and love for you for decades. We want you with us and we love you so much, Justice. It's just that medyo emotional ako today because I started writing a review of Walden's book. And I remember when I was very young, I was like 20 plus lang noon. I was telling Walden, one day maybe if you write your memoir, blah, blah, blah. And now I realize the memoir is finally there. And when I was reading the book throughout the Holy Week, medyo naging emotional ako. So I started the morning with that, and the next thing I know, also Pope Francis passed away. So it was a very overwhelming day. But all I want to say is just this: what I saw in the memoir of Walden is very interesting because it's not just his personal memoirs. It's kind of like a introduction to his whole oeuvre, his range of works. So maybe my suggestion for people is when you do memoirs, kind of hindi naman cheat, but kind of give a concise summary of your different works throughout the years, whether it's your work as a justice, your work as an intellectual and scholar. Because I think justice, in our era of short attention span, this is the best we can do, right? It's for people. Para pag tinamad ka, basahin lahat ng libro ni Walden Bello or
Yeah.
tinamad ka, basahin lahat ng mga jurisprudential intervention ni Justice Carpio. Pag binasa mo itong libro na to, may idea ka na. No? Ito talaga yung contribution ni Justice Carpio, etc. So, mabuhay ka, Justice Carpio. Thank you so much again for your copy of the West Philippine Sea book, one of my most prized possessions. And I really look forward to your new book and more than happy to endorse and review that, Justice Carpio, on our platforms, among others. And God willing, Justice, I hope also you'll hopefully put also some time aside to create some sort of inspirational memoir, maybe for next generation of
Yeah.
publicly minded legal scholars like yourself. Mabuhay ka, Justice. Maraming
Thank you,
salamat.
Richard. Thank you to our viewers.
God bless po. See you soon, Justice.